And we continue at 1:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live today from DFW. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, last night, Gavin Newsom took his victory lap and had a big speech about the passing of Prop 50, but at least he was being mindful.
So tonight, I'm proud, but I'm very mindful and sober of the moment.
Well, you're definitely not the second thing.
So tonight, I'm proud, but I'm very mindful and sober of the moment we are living in. Donald Trump does not believe in fair and free elections. Period and full stop.
Period and full stop?
Well, you can accuse him of a lot of things. You can't accuse him of not being consistent. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is the professor of political science emeritus at California State University at Fullerton, Professor Barbara Stone. Welcome.
Hi, John.
All right, let's go over the results of last night's election and start with Proposition 50. The result was not close. Gavin Newsom and the Democratic Party, they're getting what they want. They're going to have a newly gerrymandered map for the next several elections here in the state of California to make sure that the Republican representation in this state is as close to zero as humanly possible. Or I guess I shouldn't say that. After the VRA goes away, I think they will get it down to zero. But what do you make of that vote and that result?
Well, let's put it this way. Gavin raised and Gavin spent an unbelievable amount of money. I heard your earlier discussions of this, but I honestly don't believe that there's available to Republicans in this state, whether it's from our party, whether it's from our donors, most of whom, by the way, have left the state, even our grifters. We don't have the kind of money that would have been necessary. John, I spent 35 years, more or less, trying to teach freshman government students who are normal people about reapportionment and gerrymandering, and I was a gigantic failure. They don't care. They don't want to care. And unless I tell them what the test question is, they never did care. So you can't do it on the basis of explaining what's happened. You would have to be blasting every network every day with some ad that said Gavin's lying again. One of their last ads I saw was wonderful. It was Prop 50 will save reproductive rights. Really? But you would have to be count. Oh, yeah, they did that. And so but think the money you would spend if to counter that. We don't have that kind of money. And if we did have that kind of money, for what it's worth, I'd just go out and shoot the people that spent it on that. If you have hundreds of... John, if you have hundreds of millions of dollars, okay, I can tell you the seats in this state, just go put, 50 million here, 50 million there, and you'll be surprised how many you win. So from our end, if we had the money, it would have been a waste. So I don't like the result, but I'm not surprised. The other end of that is from their point of view, the bad kids. I think it was a much bigger waste of money. What were they doing? Well, that's not true. We were advancing the presidential ambitions of Gavin Newsom, right? But beyond that, to maybe get 5 more seats in balanced Texas. Several problems with that, one of which is because Gavin made such a big deal of it. You do realize all kinds of Republican states besides Texas have now run around and added seats. You probably, even if they get their 5, would have a net 0. But it's more interesting this morning. I was looking at both the Cook Political Report and Larry Sabadow's Crystal Ball. Both of them project changes in 11 seats. Okay. Remember, this whole thing was supposed to be to get more Democrats? John, 6 of the 11 were taking already Democrat seats and making them more Democrat. So they just spent how many hundreds of millions of dollars to make sure that their guys who already were elected would get elected more easily. What a useful thing to do if you're a committed Democrat. I think all the people, I gathered Gavin was threatening people and this was happening and that was happening. But from a straight up Democrat point of view, all you did was encourage other Republican states to add people. You spent a fortune and you're not going to come out with squat. Really, maybe a couple seats, big deal. I mean, it's a big deal for us in the state, but nationally it's not a big deal. Gavin, I'm glad he took a victory lap, but the National Democrats should hate him.
What do you think this is going to do to turnout in California, a state that we have a lot of people from other places? And I would imagine that if you are growing up in the same town in Iowa that your parents grew up in and you're voting in school board elections for schools that you went to and your parents went to and your kids go to, you're more likely to have skin in the game in these elections. Here we have people from all over the country, all over the globe. They don't have those kinds of roots here. In Los Angeles, it's amazing to me how often people tell me they don't know what city they live in, or they live in Beverly Hills and they think they're in LA, or they live in Encino and they think they're in an independent municipality, and they don't even know what city elections they're supposed to vote in. So it's hard to get people to educate themselves on the issues and to participate under the best of circumstances. If now you're asking people to turn out and vote in elections where they don't have a contested race on their ballot, or you have to go all the way down to city council or school board or central committee to get to a competitive race, I don't know how you get anyone, Democrat, Republican, or neither, interested in these elections. I see turnout going way down.
Okay, let me try two approaches to that, one of which is more flippant than the other. The answer, if you're Democrats, is easy. You send the union members to their house to get their ballot. That's what you do. Okay? And lo and behold, turnout looks okay because the votes get cast. I know what you're actually talking about or trying to about why should anyone vote. By the way, gerrymandered seats, there's never any real competition, so why should you pay attention? The only answer I would have back to that is, one, people don't usually know who their congressman is. I'm obviously on a cynical roll today. I used to ask my freshman government students who their member of Congress was. And over the years, I probably found half a dozen that knew. But at least most of them knew they had a congressman. When I'd ask them about who their state assemblyman was, they didn't know they had one, so they certainly didn't know who it was. But you're right on turnout, but wrong on the level. It's governors and presidents that turn people out. That's where they see them. And if you want to see low turnout, I would project, based on your thinking, and I don't reject it, that next year will be wild because absolutely nobody is running for governor, which is the top position, whom anybody's ever heard of, except maybe Katie Porter, but I'm not sure that was good they heard of her. But you get... Well, seriously, and I still believe if you want to be Democrats getting mad at Gavin just sucked up all the air. Other than Katie Porter making an idiot of herself, none of the other Democrats, there's no room for them to have been beginning to campaign. And just for fun, as you think about what's going to happen in this state, we have these new congressional seats. Do you know when filing opens?
When's that?
December 19th. Think about that. We're less than 2 months from filing for these seats. And that's because if you're like me, you've lost the fact that next year is 2026. And we have a primary in June and the whole thing. So Gavin making it so nobody else was heard was a really bad thing from Democrats' point of view. And to your initial point here, it'll be disastrous for turnout, I think.
Let's shift gears here and talk about what happened in New York City, where a self-described socialist won the election. And I think a lot of people were assuming that after he won, he would moderate his image, as many politicians do when they become part of the establishment. They want to be celebrated by the industries and the publications that serve that city. He went in the opposite direction last night, where he doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on being a socialist after winning the election and gave every indication that he's going to govern like that.
That's because Linda Sarsour said she's going to hold his feet to the fire, and right now he's running, believe it or not, scared of his left. I have a theory on New York that I may or may not be right about. I'm not into what happens there enough. I will bet you that Democrat primary was about Andrew Cuomo. There's Mamdani. We don't know much about him. He seems kind of nice and friendly, and he's out there and relatable. But it's Andrew Cuomo's the one we know, and we hate that guy. Why do we hate that guy? Oh, because he killed my grandmother by putting someone with COVID in her nursing home. That's why I hate him. and that it was all about him. And by the time they figured out who Mamdani was, it was too late. But someone like him, he can say, I have this great mandate. And as I say, at the moment, he's more scared of his left than of his right. And, oh, my goodness, that's going to be fun. Although AOC, that paragon of intellectual thought, apparently on CNN probably today, said that the party can no longer deny its future after the Mamdani win. I think that's just a lovely thought.
What do you think Cuomo would have been like had he won and Curtis got out of the race and all of the anti-Mamdani support went behind Cuomo, or at least was thrown to Cuomo through endorsements?
I think I honestly believe that any of us who have been in politics very long know that in circumstances like that, you do not go play in other people's sandboxes. You never, ever like the results. In this case, believe it or not, Andrew Cuomo probably would have believed AOC, and that you have to accept the future of the Democrat Party as left, moving left. And that's what Andrew Cuomo would have done. So to think he would have been anything better, probably not, just a bit more cynical.
Let's move on to the state of Virginia, where the Democratic candidate, Abigail Spanberger, won that election for governor in a walk. I think we both agree that the government shutdown certainly had a big impact on that race. And even under the best of circumstances, that's a tough state for Republicans. Glenn Youngkin was able to do it last time, but the Democrats had the seat before him. But let's move down to that attorney general's race, where you had the Democratic candidate who put in writing, sober, that he wanted to kill one of his Republican opponents, and then he wanted to kill the children as well. Obviously attracted nationwide negative attention that just saturated that state with just negative news about this guy. And he didn't respond to it well. And that didn't seem to have mattered in that election. And it was women in Virginia, of all people, that came in a heavy-duty way for him that either didn't care or embraced it.
Interesting you picked that particular seat out, because I had to. That if you want proof of the moral deterioration of the United States, there it is. And that's not a bunch of ignorant, who knows what. That happened on purpose. And I actually saw right after it came out about what he had done, that the polling showed him dropping substantially. And then he just picked it right back up. And to the extent I understand what was going on in Virginia, some of it, John, is just the normal dynamics. The president's elected. He's been in for a year. He hasn't delivered on everything he said he would deliver on. So we get mad on him. Trump's polling was way, way down on handling the economy. So it's nothing that people shouldn't have expected. However, they should not have expected that guy. And I can't come up with a decent explanation other than federal government employees are immoral, because that's what a lot of them would have been. And as a former government employee, that's not a good thing for me to say. But you know what it may signify, my dear, is that on the left, being anti-Trump is the morality. And this was because everything I ever saw on Spanberger and the whole group was anti-Trump, anti-Trump. Here's another question. No, anti-Trump, anti-Trump. That hatred of Donald Trump is enough to cover up a whole range of sins. And if that's true, those are sick people. But I hate to say it, I think we have them.
Well, given what just happened in Virginia, and given the fact that New York City just elected a socialist, let's look at all of this in the context of the Democratic primary for president. If the morality is hating Donald Trump, and Gavin Newsom is now reading from that book, but clearly is not the biggest hater on planet Earth, he's just playing that part because that's where the open lane is right now. There are people out there who will be more authentic and louder than him. Do you think they're going to end up eating his lunch?
I don't know. I really and truly don't know. Partly, I would want to say, you know what, though? Gavin got the jump on him. And at this moment, within that context, his great opposition seems to be AOC. Having said that, but see, this is my prejudice. Bless his heart, Gavin comes across as so totally inauthentic. From the hair to the gestures to the looks to the whatever, I don't see how anybody can read him as being mindful or authentic. But of course, that's my prejudice, and so I must be missing something because he's the one they say they want.
We have about 60 seconds left. What do you say to the people who are blaming Trump for this result?
You blame Trump because you elected him president, and when you can't deliver everything in the first year, the anti-incumbent vote does this to you. Why would you do that? I'm not saying that Trump is perfect. He's certainly not. There's some stuff I hope he doesn't do. Sometimes he just does it because it's Trump. But for heaven's sakes, it's a dynamic that plays out every 4 years if you change presidents. And to think it's just because it's Donald Trump, and if it wasn't Donald Trump, it wouldn't have happened. You need to go smoke something that's now legal in California.
And this is going to be a problem for Republicans, though, how to turn people out who voted for Trump, but who aren't as interested in politics outside of Trump.
Yes, and really quickly, that means, among other things, too, you guys get your head out of the sand. Yes, go do mail ballots. Yes, go do voter contacts. Yes, go do all the stuff that we go, don't do it, it's illegal. It's not illegal and it's not immoral, and if we don't do it, we get stomped and we deserve it. Excuse me.
Professor Barbara Stone, Professor of Political Science Emeritus at California State University at Fullerton. Thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, John. Nice to talk to you.
If you're on hold, stay there. We're going to get to your calls. If you want to join in on the conversation and weigh in on yesterday's election, give us a call at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222, 800-222-5222. If you want to weigh in on yesterday's election, 1-800-222-5222. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Allison writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Hi, I just received my No on 50 flyer in the mail today.
Money well spent, kids. Money well spent. 800-222-5222 if you'd like to weigh in on yesterday's election. 800-222-5222. And Randy, now that we've hit the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
3 hours of this, and you still want more? What's wrong with you people? No, I'm totally kidding. Listen to all of it that you want all day long, 24 hours a day. Hell, do it 25 hours a day. Search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do a Google on the YouTube. Get the free KABC app. Get the free KSFO app. Get the KMJ Now app because you can hear us on Saturdays on 2 at the Central Valley. There are so many different ways to listen live to our radio stations and download all the podcasts.
All right, let's go back to the phones and welcome Donald in Los Gatos. Donald, hello.
Hey, guys. So it's obvious to me, if you want anything passed in California, all you got to do is, under the referendum there, put how much you hate Trump and how much he's against it. It'll pass.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. They just kept it very simple. A lot of people commented on the interview I did with the Democratic Assemblyman earlier in the week, where I had all these questions for him, different questions about different aspects of Prop 50, and it didn't matter what I asked him. The answer was Orange Man bad. We need this to preserve democracy. Orange Man bad. It was it. And it drove people crazy because they said, you had all these different questions, and he wasn't paying attention to the specific question that you asked. It was like he was reading off a script and wouldn't deviate from the script. Now, in retrospect, what he did was the right thing in terms of just trying to win the election. They knew who they were talking to, and they knew what message those people wanted to hear, and they knew that if they just hammered home that message, they would get what they want, which is more congressional seats. And that's what it boiled down to. Well, guess what? You can win the election doing that, but that's an awful way to run a state. And part of the reason that California has a declining population and that businesses are moving out is because, well, from a purely partisan point of view, they agree with these people on this. They also recognize that the government that they receive is wrecking their lives. So they're packing up from the state with the best weather in the union, and they're moving to places with worse weather. And it's not because of the weather. It's not because they just decide that they want to look at something other than the ocean or the mountains or the bridges. They're doing it because of the government.
Yeah, and they also got them to add a new tax to Santa Cruz County. Amazing. Also, one more thing about Mondani there. I'm pretty sure when they asked him about the bomb threats that were called into the voting stations or polls, I think I seen a yellow feather fly out of his mouth there.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Well, usually when I hear about bomb threats, I think it's one of Karen Bass's aides.
I didn't get that joke, and I don't think I need to.
I think it's the cat that ate the canary, right? Let's go to Jimmy in Pittsburgh. Jimmy, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. I was noticing that when we're talking about all the advertisements of voting no on 50 or yes on 50, I mean, the Democrats seemed like they did a superb job putting the advertisements on TV, YouTube, Netflix. It was very thorough. We had nothing as far as on the Republican side on voting no. And then here come the elections, and they did a clean sweep on election day. I just was wondering what your thoughts were on all of this. And living in California is so hard. You got two people living under one roof. We claim we have good jobs, but we're barely making it. And it just seems very discouraging on where we're headed.
It is discouraging because you keep looking for signs of improvement. And I think we saw that. I think many of us saw that in the last cycle with Prop 36. Prop 36 was all 58 counties getting behind a measure that would put people in jail for breaking the law. And for whatever reason, the ruling Democrats decided that that was racist and they weren't going to do that for a long period of time. They didn't want to put people in prison. They wanted, quote unquote, accountability, which is box checking. And then suddenly we started buying our shampoo that was locked up behind bulletproof glass. And enough people, And in California, when you're talking about a majority, you're talking about Democrats and independents too, said, I don't want to live like this anymore. And they started booting the Soros DAs, whether it was Pamela Price in Alameda County, Chesa Boudin in San Francisco, George Gascon in Los Angeles. They tried to put one in Orange County. They were unsuccessful there. But the public really did started to push back on that in a real way that was identifiable. And I thought, okay, well, we're making some progress here. Let's try to build on that and do something somewhere else. Let's fix the insurance market in California. Let's cut bait on the bullet train. Let's move the ball forward in some way. And it just looks like one of these circumstances where it's going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And it's going to take a lot longer than we thought to get the state back on track. And for some people, going back to the discussion we just had about moving out of state, some people have just made the determination that it's just going to take too long to fix it here, and they don't have that kind of time to waste. And that's why they've decided to move out. And I disagree with that for myself. I don't want to leave the state. I don't want to move to another place because you're trading your current problems for all new problems. It may not be problems with the government. It may be problems with something else, whether it be the weather or whatever. I'm not interested in that. I know the beast. I understand California. I understand a warts and all view of where I live. And to my eye, it's easier and better and more beneficial to me to just fix where I live than to move someplace else. It's just going to be hard to do. All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Lisa in La Puente. Lisa, hello.
Oh, hang on 1 second.
We got time.
I'm sorry. Hello. Okay, you got it? You got me? Yes. I am in La Puente, and let me tell you, okay, part of their voting system is through union, okay, because I'm in 2 unions, and they all voted yes. And I said, wait a minute, I went to a union meeting, and every time I went to I went to 3 this last in 6 months. I was booed out of every single one because they knew I voted for Trump. Every single one. And I couldn't even get a word in edgewise. I said, okay. I said, the last thing I said to them, remember who you voted for and what you voted for, because when it fails you, you're going to want to know why. Then you're going to come to me and ask me, and it's going to be too late.
Is it a blue-collar union or a white-collar union?
Blue.
Okay. And they were all in lockstep with one another.
All of them are locked in with a yes. And I said, and I would ask certain people, do you know what you're voting for? No, but the union told me this is what we should do. And I said, you know what? You should really read what you're voting for because, okay, a lot of people didn't vote for Trump. I don't care. They know I voted for Trump. I said, it's better than what was in the White House before us, okay? And then to go and oh my God, I think I'm just going to die if this governor of California gets into the White House. You think people that the state of California is screwed up? Wait, if he got in there, he's going to destroy we're just going to go, might as well just flip us back over to the other end because he is going to just destroy the whole United States that quickly. It didn't take him long to raise our rent, raise the taxes. I mean, and people are going, wow, I have to pay so much for gas, and something's got to give. And I said, and who did you vote for? What did you vote for? Oh, I don't know. The union told me. There are a lot of stupid people in the union, and the ones that know things, like myself, they do not want to listen. They don't want to listen, and then those that do. Okay, let's say out of, was it 90? It's more like 125 people there for one meeting because I'll have 3 meetings in there in one day. And that one time I was in there, okay, I had only 5 people going, Lisa, what are they talking about? 5 out of all them people, 5. So the rest are going, oh yeah, we're just going to vote what the union goes. We like the union; they help us, and that $30 billion they had last year, and you know what? They want more money from us this year. They want us to pay more union dues. And I had issues with some of my working situations, and they did nothing for me. They did not help me because they didn't tell me how to do the process. There is such a major process to get things done, and the way everything is going, I'm sorry to say, is not going well. And with him,
do you think they punished you because of your politics, or do you think they just didn't help you because they're just not good at what they do?
It was definitely of the politics because they kept on sending me flyers and kept sending me stuff to vote yes. And I wrote to them. I said, "Stop sending me this. I'm voting no. And if you physically talk to me and call me, I will tell you why." Okay. And didn't they replace a congressperson with the Democrat, one of ours, with a Republican? Why would you not?
Well, I will say this. I don't know if you've been following it, but this may be something you want to pay attention to. There is a case right now.
Okay,
I think it's the Alaska Airlines flight attendants, where it was a situation similar to yours, where they were conservative flight attendants, and it's a liberal union. And the company came down on them for something I think that they posted on social media, something political. And the company is very woke, and the company was trying to get rid of them. Well, the union politically is on the same page as the company. Usually the union's adversarial to the company, but in this case, they were on the same page. And so the union either didn't represent them or gave them inadequate representation, and they lost their jobs, and then they're suing. And they're saying they're suing the union and the company because they lost their jobs. And it looks like, I think it's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. I'd have to look up the specifics on this particular lawsuit. But based on what I understand, it looks like they're going to win their case against both of them, against the company and the union, because you can't punish people for their politics. People can vote how they want to vote. And with all this talk about preserving democracy, that should be something that's important to people.
Absolutely. And I will check on that myself. Don't worry. But they also, it's the same union, and I work for two different companies, but same union. And the one would not let me speak. They just booed and booed and booed. No, shut up. You don't need to talk anything. We don't need to hear you. We don't. Okay, and that was the last thing I said. Okay, you know what? You remember who you voted for, remember what you voted for, because you're going to be coming back to me asking me questions.
All right. Well, thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Keep it up. There you go. All right, 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Marina in Hollywood. Marina, hello.
Yes. Hi, John. My comment is about that woman that called and said she wasn't going to turn her vote in till half hour before the centers closed. And I'm thinking, if she's worried about being the votes being rigged, my God, we couldn't have come out much worse than how it turned out. If we had heard that lots of Republicans were going out and voting by mail, I think that would have given incentive and excitement, and more Republicans would have been more likely to mail in their votes. This Republican turnout is so anemic, and it's because everybody thinks, well, what's the use? And I'm just so tired of that mind frame.
You know what it's like? It's like people who make a New Year's resolution. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to go to the gym all the time. And you ask them, okay, have you been to the gym? Well, not yet. I had, work pop up. I had childcare issues. I've had a nasty cold. Well, have you gone to the gym now? Well, I've got a work trip coming up, and I didn't really like the gym at the hotel that my company put me in. So, I didn't go to the gym. Well, okay, now that you're back home, have you gone to the gym? No, my internal clock is all screwed up because I had to change time zones, and I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. I'll go after that. you can keep coming up with excuses to not do the thing that you need to do if you want to. When we all know, whether it's voting or exercising or doing anything that we may not particularly like, if you just buckle down and do it and get it over with, you can move on, and you did what you had to do. But we come up with these excuses, and the excuses that lead to delays lead to self-sabotage.
But wasn't it the easiest thing to just put it in the mail? And if she was so worried about them receiving her mail, you can go to the centers and ask them. They looked up mine, and they said, "Oh, you voted already by mail." It's so simple.
It's the easiest thing in the world to do, and we can't get people to do it, and then they complain when they don't like the result.
It's very infuriating. And why can't we come up with some slogans like "No Kings"? Why can't we come up with some things that grab the attention of Republicans? You know, news come, okay, but something. I don't know. I'm very
well. We did in 2024. It was too big to rig, and Susie Wiles and Trump got people to go out and vote by mail. And he was out there beating the drum, and the campaign was out there beating the drum, and they got people to vote by mail, and that was the big change from 2020 to 2024, and he ended up winning, and it was too big to rig. And it's like we've learned nothing. We forgot everything a year later.
Yeah. I also think Charlie Kirk's not being in the game right now has really hurt us not having the youth vote.
Could be. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Let's go to Justin in Santa Rosa. Justin, hello.
Hey, John. Hey,
Randy.
Hi there. How are you guys? Hey, one of the things, I was having a discussion yesterday with a friend of my father's. He's in his 70s, and he thinks he's a Democrat, but his values are all conservative, and yet he votes for Democrats. And I know several other people in that age group that do that, and I was thinking that might be a good topic of discussion on your show for, like, why do you have conservative values and vote for Democrats?
Well, I think what you just described is true with a lot of what I refer to as New Deal Democrats, these older people that became Democrats because of FDR and the New Deal. And you look at the programs that he supported, and current Democrats would have a huge problem with many of them. He liked to build things. He wanted to build dams. He wanted to build infrastructure. He wanted progress. Well, try getting that by the environmentalists now. Try going and building a dam right now and seeing what kind of opposition that you run into. And FDR just went pedal to the metal building all of those things because they provided for jobs. And they created infrastructure that the country could use to grow and ultimately, end up winning World War II. But back then, Democrats believed in a strong border because they didn't want illegal immigrants to come in and undercut the unions and undercut the wages. And that was something that they were very much opposed to. But now a lot of that has flipped. So if you're a New Deal Democrat, your party has abandoned you on any number of things that you believe in.
Yeah, they're gone. Like I read a State of the Union address from Bill Clinton from.
Oh yeah, it's night and day between Bill Clinton and Mamdani. Thank you for the call. We're out of time this hour. If you're on hold, stay there at 800-222-5222. It's the John Phillips Show.